this is Jesus saying, hey, listen, I don't care if you're pre-mission, during your mission, after your mission. He says, you're on my hands. And not only that, but I trust you. I have a work for you to do. I want to lift you up. I want to set a standard with you to those that don't know me yet.
So TJ, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're actually going to be doing a new format. We're going to be making it more topic centered, with the guests to come share their experience, of course, but it's going to be topic centered. And who better to have on the podcast than TJ, the host of a very well-known podcast, or a co-host of a very well-known podcast. This is Kingdom. Dude, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, totally. Well, today we're going to be talking about 3 core principles that every returned missionary needs to have or should be thinking about developing in their life to have a successful transition home. And that is order, purpose, and relationships. And so, dude, let's just jump right in and kind of just jump into the order section. When we were talking on the phone the other day, I was asking you what helped you in your transition, and those were the topics that you kind of brought up. And so, yeah, what are some of your thoughts on that first topic of order? Why is it important for a return missionary?
Yeah, I love narrowing it down to these 3, just because there's so much that happens when you come home. You know, it's crazy. And I think order is a great one kind of to come first, just to pour energy into order, because it's chaotic. You know what I mean? There's chaos when you come home sometimes.
Totally.
You're trying to figure out, what do I do with my life? Like, how do I, like, is this even going to help me get a job now? You know what I mean?
Seriously.
Kind of questioning things, chaos. There's old friends that you see. And
was that what it was like for you when you got home?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I got home, it was, just like not a lot of direction. I feel like, and I had life before the mission, but as far as like my spiritual and like real life goes, like it really started like on the mission for me. You know what I mean? I feel like I was kind of asleep in high school. And so after the mission, I was like, well, what do you do now? How do I apply everything that's been going on for the past 2 years into like normal life? Because I hadn't before. Yeah. You know, and so there's chaos. There's just there's a lot of decisions. How do you use your time? And a lot of things in the world, I feel like tries to pull you like a million different ways, and it will if you let it.
Totally.
And so I love the thought of pouring lots of energy into order. And what I think of order is like structure, and specifically like a schedule. Yeah. You know, because you go on the mission, like it's kind of strict, you know, you have your bedtime and your wake up time and everything's planned in. And I feel like when I came home, I was like, all right, man, like let's freaking party, and let's just like not party,
yeah,
but you know what I mean? Like let's
let
I can
loose.
stay up. Yeah, I can stay up as late as I want. No more 10:30. I could sleep in. I could do whatever. And what I found is when I lost some of that order and schedule and structure from the mission, it just opens you up to all kinds of crazy stuff and bad stuff that you don't want to get into, especially and we talked a little bit about like bad habits and stuff before the mission. Yeah. And for me, just speaking from my experience and speaking from what I've seen, is that if you come home and kind of trash your schedule and trash your sleep and trash your food and just everything, it's I don't know, to me it was like a fast track of like going back down those bad paths, you know what I mean? Yeah, fast track back to porn or whatever you use, or toxic relationships, whatever you use to like feel good. Yeah. And so I feel like order is just big time, dude.
It's huge. I've shared this experience before on the podcast, but a week after I'd gotten home, I kind of like let go of my schedule. I had gotten my first smartphone I ever had. And then that week I had looked at porn a week after being home.
Yeah, bro.
And because the structure wasn't there, it wasn't supporting me. And then it was chaos in my head. It wasn't just chaos in my schedule, but I had no order in my head after that point, because I had a lot of shame and guilt, but
Yeah.
it kind of sent me spiraling. And I know there's a lot of missionaries that come home looking for that break, and by all means, like rest, like when you get home,
have fun,
like have fun, like and celebrate. But you also want to hit the ground running. Otherwise, you might get some skid marks coming down on that runway.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, so I think, having some, just like you said, having some order. I think the sleep schedule is a huge one, and something that's interesting. When I went to school, because I went to BYU Idaho when I first got home, and so that kind of forced me into order, where I had school and then studies and then work and everything. And so that helped a lot. But man, I wish I had someone to like shake me when I got home. And my parents tried, you know what I mean? But it's hard for them. They want to love and support all that they can. But I just remember getting home and then being like, Mom, like, what are we doing at 3:30 p.m. tomorrow? Like, I don't, because you're so used to having everything planned. And I wish I had someone.
There's a gap in the schedule.
Yeah. Like, what are we doing? Like, should we go like knock some doors, or, you know what I mean?
So funny.
But it's like, I wish I wish I could go back to my younger self and be like, dude, like, you gotta, set yourself up for success with your schedule, with your sleep, and with your habits, and with your phone. Like, get quick to checking in, because, yeah, man. I mean, now my phone habits are really good, just way different than right when I got home. Dude, but I wish I could tell myself, like, do the whole check your phone in thing, man, because it's so quick and it's so easy. And I think Satan is so quick.
Checking your phone in?
Oh, just like whatever, just charging it in another room, or
like when you're going to bed, you're like, hey, I don't need it on my nightstand.
Yeah, dude, because either you're gonna be up freaking looking at weird stuff, or you're gonna be distracting. Or you're doom scrolling, and then it messes up your dopamine and everything, and then you stay up another few hours or whatever. And then you're tired the next day, and then it's anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, checking the phone in at night, and then just like on the mission, bro, just like being intentional about having certain things locked down. Like, I don't even to this day, I don't have Instagram on my phone right now.
Oh, really?
Just because it's so quick for temptation and distraction. And so
that's smart. But I do know that you have a lot of followers on Instagram, or do you post frequently, or?
Yeah, I try.
Do you just download it for that little time to
I'll just use on my wife's phone.
Oh, okay.
Just on my wife's phone.
That's
so I guess
smart.
if I was single, it'd be a little bit different. Have to have different. But I think just being intentional about it.
Intentional and having like accountability. Like I would do that with my roommates. Stuff like that. Where I'm like, hey bro, could you unlock my phone for 15 minutes? I need to download something. And
dude. Yeah, I love
That's
that.
Smart.
And so even if you want to use social media to post, I just have a time set apart every day, just a certain part in the evening. And it's just a chunk of time where I'll post, respond to anything, and then I'll scroll a little bit, but it's just for the time allotted. And so that has been a big part of order coming home. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones. I'd love to hear what you have. The main ones I think is having a schedule and being intentional about your phone as far as order. That. Anything else that helped you?
Yeah. I'm a really good example of what not to do. And when I got home, I kind of worked for my parents. I didn't get like a normal job, and I wish I had. And because with your parents, you can kind of slack off, and they're going to forgive you because you're their kid. And so I did. Or
what did you guys do? Or what did you do
I was supposed to help with marketing my dad's business, and I did. But it wasn't like it would have been if it was for somebody else's company. I think my just young, immature mind, I was just kind of freeloading for a bit, and so I would say, like, if that is a tendency of yours, like don't take the easy path when you get home and work for a family member if you know you're going to be lazy about it. Because if you can have a schedule, have something to get you up out of bed, like going to BYU Idaho was that for you. You had to go to classes at a certain time. You had to turn in assignments at a certain time. It gave you order. For me, I didn't get into school right away. I was working for my parents, and then I quit that and I started working another job, but it was very self-motivated. It was like knocking doors and getting signatures for this petition. And at that point in my life, I would say a lot has changed, and I am very self-motivated now, but at that point, I wasn't. And I needed structure. And so whether it is doing full-time school, working full-time, doing like, I don't know, being part of what's it called? A nonprofit that does these service activities. Those kind of things that can fill your day will just do wonders. Like, and Satan loves those idle hands. He wants you to be lazy, but because as soon as you're lazy, he can start putting tons of ideas in your head of what you can do to not be bored. And I promise you all those ideas are bad. And so, yeah,
there's better ways to use the time.
Totally. And so I'd say that would probably be a really good one. Is just having something that forces structure on you.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think also I don't know what it is, but there's preach my gospel, bro. Like, it's crazy. And I'm like, I remember being on the mission and being like, man, when I go home, I'm going to do all these things, like, because all these relate so good to real life. And they do. But I came home and I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because years later being home, I find myself, when I'm finding the most joy and fulfillment now, it's because I'm applying those principles and preach my gospel. And I think for order, it's especially like chapter 8, you know what I mean? Like setting goals and making plans. I mean, I'm sure you do this with your brothers and your business and everything. Like I think continuing to work on your personal development and working on your goals and plans for your physical, emotional, and spiritual health, like that plays a big role in order as well.
What are some of the practical things they talk in chapter 8? They talk about in chapter 8.
I think for sure, like setting goals in those main areas of life. Yeah. And it's funny because, on the mission, you set goals for, who you're teaching and who you're trying to help baptize and whatever. But now you come home and it's just easy. You just take all those, but now you just transition them into what you got going on now, like what your goals with dating and your goals with your personal study and your goals with work and with other things.
And there's all those jokes about dating and investigators. It's like, I have a progressing investigator, but in all seriousness, it's not a bad idea to be like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm gonna make a goal to like meet one new person every day while I'm at school, and whether that's a girl that goes on a date, sweet. Like it doesn't matter, but having something specific that you've written down that you can track, like. I think it's Thomas S. Monson's quote that's in chapter 8, where he says, goals written down will like do wonders, but goals written down and then tracked after will, I can't remember the quote, but
just being intentional, just seeing it through, And we got so pumped on the mission because we're like, okay, if I set this goal, God will know my plans, we'll be able to align, and he'll put someone in my path. It's the same in life after the mission. You know what I mean? So you got set goals and then you got make plans. And I'm also a big believer, and it's not as strict and as structured as on the mission, but I love the idea of having a loose little weekly planning session for the week. You know what I mean? Especially when you're married, you need to be on the same page as your spouse. So you don't get, thrown off and then you're fighting and you didn't tell me about, what I mean? So the weekly planning is so helpful for that. And then even little daily planning, checking in, okay, how am I accomplishing my goals tomorrow? I
love that. With weekly planning, do you have comp inventory as well?
Yeah, dude. I was about to say that. Yeah, bro. And it's funny. Again, that's something I said on my mission. And then it's taken me a while in my marriage to help us to do it. And it's really cool, man.
Yeah.
It's really important. And it's funny because all the marriage books, not all, but there's a lot of marriage books that help couples be intentional. And if you go through your comp inventory, you're like doing a ton of the things that they're telling you to do in the marriage books to acknowledge and praise each other for your strengths and ask for help with your weaknesses and ask about your goals and discussing the strengths and weaknesses of the companionship and everything. Like that applies so good into marriage.
Because it gives you an excuse to bring it up. Because a lot of times if you're like conflict avoidant, you're just like, I'll just deal with it.
Yeah.
But then your partner's like, no, Like, tell me, we're doing comp inventory.
Yeah.
What could I do better?
Yeah.
And it kind of gives you an excuse to be like, okay, fine. The way you, I don't know, throw your wet towel on the bed really just irks me. And so, yeah, I love it. That's awesome.
Bro. And I love, and you could just, I hope people that hear this will just hear the whole theme is just, it's just order. It's doing things on purpose, having a structure, and having order to your life so the chaos doesn't just have you all messed up, you know?
Dang, I love that. Was there any specific moment when you got home, like in terms of a story, like any specific moment where you felt like your life was chaotic? And it doesn't have to be when you first got home. It could be a couple of years after, but your life's chaotic. It feels out of control. And something told you to change something in your life, to put some order in it. What was that thing, and what was the result of adding order into your life?
Man, I'm trying to think. It's kind of interesting because where you talk about the family business, when I came home, well, after school, I went and worked with my uncle. He had a food catering business for Hawaiian barbecue. And it was super yummy. And it was a great time with him. And everything about the work and with him was awesome. I got to stay with him for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, even kind of through that, I wasn't super intentional about like my schedule and stuff. And it wasn't until and it's kind of embarrassing and kind of funny to me now, but there was even a few times I think either I went to church just for a little bit or I didn't even go. I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but when I moved down from BYU, Idaho, I guess this will tie in later. I'm going to tell this part later because this has to do more with the relationships.
Okay.
But anyway, I think the thing that actually helped me with order was when I started teaching seminary again. So I taught some seminary up in Idaho. And then they're like, okay, if you when you get married, hit us up, or hit up seminary people down in Utah, and then you'll be able to. But then I came down to Utah, and then it's so funny. It's it's a long story. I won't tell all of it, but I got set up on this double date, and then me and my date just ended up being like homies. And then she was like, hey, you want to just come over for dinner on Sunday to meet my dad? Because he's an institute and seminary teacher.
Oh, that's sick.
And I was like, dang, you're moving kind of fast.
Yeah.
You know? But
dang.
It was just to meet her dad. And then the dad called up the seminary people here, and then they got me a job.
Wow.
And so being put in that position, and I'm sure hopefully this can relate to other people in their own situations. Not everyone's going to be a seminary teacher, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But being put in this job where I had some purpose weaved into it, where I was trying to help out the youth and having some things expected of me to show up and to be worthy and to study and prepare. Those things kind of pushed me naturally to get my order and get my schedule on point, to make sure I'm waking up at a certain time so I can get my gym in, so I can get my prep, and then going to bed at a decent time. So hopefully something in that can relate to somebody, but having a job that was kind of purposeful for me and that I feel like is an opportunity that God put in my life, that kind of pushed me to be intentional about order.
Nice.
Getting some more structure.
Ah, dude, I freaking love it.
Yeah. What about you?
This has happened several times throughout my life, and it's just become stronger every time it's happened. But when the reason I say I'm a self-starter now, I can be very self-motivated now, is because I had a goal that was pushing me towards that. And that was, I had met a girl. And
that'll do it to you.
Yeah, it'll do it to you. And I was just like, man, I want to be the man that can provide, the man that can be reliable, that can be counted on. And so I just started putting things together in my life. I started working harder than anybody else would work. I started getting in on time, which sometimes I have lapses and I come in at 10 instead of 9, but I always put in the hours. And then honestly, after that, I've had a couple girlfriends, but after each girlfriend, that desire to be that man, the reliable, consistent, hardworking man, got stronger and stronger. And I'm engaged right now. I've never felt it so strong in my life than right now. I want to be everything for her. And it's been such a blessing in my life because just her presence, her mere presence has made me a better man. Which, man,
I love that.
I could talk about this for hours. It's definitely a topic I'm passionate about. But yeah, I would say that's been probably one of the biggest motivating factors for me to put order into my life.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Order has clearly been something huge in both of our lives because we've experienced the opposite at some point. Let's kind of transition from order to the second topic, which can honestly really help in order. And that's kind of what I talked about, was once I found a passion, it helped me develop order into my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so with passion, why do you, purpose. Why do you think purpose is so important for these return missionaries?
I think one of the things I hear the most from return missionaries, and I think I felt it too, totally, but just, okay, I did my mission. I came home, like, what now? You know what I mean? What's my purpose now? Because on the mission, and it's interesting because on the mission, it's easy to, because you have your purpose like given to you.
Yeah. It's written out.
Yeah.
And you say it every morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got your purpose, you know, we invite people to come unto Christ, help them receive the restored gospel. And every single second of every single day, we're making goals, making plans, having a schedule, teaching lessons in order to help accomplish that purpose. And then you come home and then it's like, okay, cool. Now I have to like get a job and make money and go to school and everything.
Yeah.
And then you have this feeling of, you know, lacking purpose and lacking fulfillment. But it's so important because when you come home, your purpose honestly doesn't change. I mean, you're still inviting others to come into Christ and helping people restore the gospel. It just looks different. On the mission, your purpose is people. I remember our mission president walking us through the exercise in that chapter 1 where he had us underline any word that would refer to someone other than you. Because it was saying like, you know, there's people around you, they're struggling. You'll find them in the streets and you'll find them. I know in the New Revised Version it says you'll find them online and you'll find them wherever. Yeah. And your purpose is people. And when you come home, your purpose is still people. It's just different people. You just got to find your people that you need to serve. And now it's a little bit different. Instead of your investigators, now it's your friends and family that you're around more. And instead of, you know, members and your companion, now it's in dating and in friends and in your ministering assignments and in your ward and in your callings. And so I think this is so important, and I'm excited to unpack it with you because if we can just remember that we can still have a strong purpose when we come home, then we won't say things like, that was my best 2 years.
Yeah.
Or I felt closest to God in those 2 years. Or, you know, whatever, fill in the blank in these in these 2 years.
Yeah.
Because now you got the next 2 years to live out your purpose and fulfillment and helping and giving and growing and serving. You just got to make the mental transition of what that looks like in this new way of life.
Yeah. Oh, I freaking love that. Something that just came to my head. I don't know why I haven't thought about this before, but I really want to do it now, is I want to write out my purpose and state it in the morning.
Yeah, dude.
Like looking in the mirror, just be like, hey, my purpose is this. And I want it to be like specific to me. So it's not just like, I had another guest on, we talked about purpose, and a lot of us are very vague with our purposes. It was like to come to earth and gain a body and gain experience. It's like, which is true, but we need to be a little bit more specific with ourselves. And so, yeah, that's definitely something I just want to, I need to do that. Write that down, because that will give me a lot of motivation for those days when you don't feel like keeping the order. You don't feel like getting up and working out.
Yeah, I love how you're like weaving those, because they are so connected.
Yeah.
They're all connected. It'll be fun to talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I do love what you're talking about. It's about people. It's about the impact you can have on people, like your purpose. And at the end of every podcast I do with Released, I say, remember God is good and is planning on your success.
Mm.
And though you've been released from your mission, you've not been released from your ministry. Like
Love
you're
that.
still here to teach. You're still here to serve, to help people come closer to Christ. And instead of doing what I did when I came home from my mission and saw my parents and reverted back to being like just a big kid and being like, oh man, like let me freeload.
And it's hard because you come back to that situation where you were used to being taken care of. You know?
Totally.
And so it's natural, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate with that.
Yeah, I bet a lot of people do. But instead of doing that, like what if you came home and you were a support to them? You ministered to them. You built them up rather than said, okay, I did something great, now give me rest, give me a job, give me all this stuff. And so, man, what a great way to come home and just be like, how can I serve my family now?
Yeah. There was an article I think it was in the Friend or the Leahona or something. And the article was returning home to your mission.
Ooh,
and I love that mindset,
like that.
Especially with purpose. And just a little hack maybe with writing down the purpose, something that I've done. I think patriarchal blessings are amazing for this, and something that I did, I kind of combined, as I was like praying and pondering about my own purpose, I kind of received some direction and then put that together with a little bit of my patriarchal blessing that is very having to do with my purpose. And I kind of put that together, and I kind of made that like my little purpose statement and I try to look at it every morning. And I think like Steve Covey talks about having a purpose statement or whatever for the company, for your company or organization.
7 Habits?
Yeah, I think so.
I need to read that.
I think it's in Habit too. Yeah. But that's been something, a little bit of a hack for me.
Would you mind sharing it, unless it's too personal?
Sure. I've never really shared it, but I feel fine about sharing it.
Sick.
Maybe this will help people as they're looking at their blessing. And so I put, with God, I will provide an example that will bolster the faith and strengthen the confidence of those who are weak. My example, and these are just some lines from my patriarchal blessing. I put this together. It says, my example is needed for those who need someone to cast their eyes upon, to inspire them to rise up and live after the manner of happiness, which is after the manner of righteousness. And so I guess just reading this again and reading some of these things that I feel like God has put on my heart, like, it is really a powerful thing, like kind of triggers me to like wake up and to remember, I have a purpose today. I'm not just going with the flow. I'm not just going through the motions. I have a purpose. Like God has a work for me to do, just like on the mission. Now he has it for me. Cause you come home, and even when you get married, now your purpose is your family.
Yeah.
Now you're out. And even if you're making money or you're progressing in your education or school, like it's all for them. Mm-hmm. It's like that song, like it's not about you. Do you remember that one? The EFY? It's like, it's not about you.
Yeah.
And it like calls me out every time. Cause it's like, dude, if you're getting stressed or worried, like just chill out. Like it's not about you. And it's like that scripture. It's in 3 Nephi 13. And then I know it's around the Beatitudes as well.
We have a Book of Mormon. But do you want it?
Oh yeah, bro.
Here, let me grab it.
Sure. Get it from the source. Thanks, bro. I know I should have it memorized because I'm a freaking seminary teacher. But so this is 3 Nephi 13 verses 31 through 33. And it says, therefore take no thought saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or wherewithal shall we be clothed? And so to me it's saying like, don't stress or worry about all these temporal things. Verse 32, for your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of all these things. Like God knows, you know what I mean? Like God knows what we're worried about. And then he knows what's most important. And here it is. Verse 33, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And here's my favorite blessing ever. And all these things shall be added unto you. And so, yeah, man, I love those verses. It reminds me and it wakes me up. Like you put God first and you make him your purpose. You love God, you love people, and everything falls into place in the best ways.
Oh man.
And it doesn't always look pretty. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it stinks sometimes coming home, and
totally.
Sometimes you even trying to do this and it doesn't look like what you expected. But I think it's so important. get your purpose on.
That's awesome. It reminds me of a story about my dad. He kind of got pushed out of his business by a business partner, and he's trying to start something up. We had just moved, so like another mortgage on top of his shoulders, and he's just feeling stressed. And he's like, we're running out of money. I hired a couple people to try to help start this other business. I don't even know if I can support their families, like let alone like my own. And he's feeling stressed, and he's sitting in his office at home, and he just had the thought, like, open the scriptures, and he's like, okay, which one? Bible, because he had like the quad where it's separated. So he grabbed the Bible, New Testament, Old Testament. He's like, okay, New Testament, Old Testament, New Testament. Okay. Which book? Matthew. Okay. Which chapter? Matthew 5.
Oh, no way.
Which verse? I'm trying to remember. Is it 26? The one that says.
I don't remember. Is these verses?
It's so close to that. It says, for behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not.
Oh, yeah. That's that same part.
Yeah. Neither do they reap nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they? And he's just like, okay, God, I'm going to put you first, and I know you're going to take care of me. And it was so good. I didn't learn about it until like years later, but that business that he was starting did well. He was able to support everybody on his payroll. He never missed a payroll. He was able to be, he made one of the greatest cultures I've ever seen inside of a business. And so God knows. And like when your purpose is him, his purpose is you. And you can count on that.
I love that.
And so like, that's the whole purpose why he gave us his son in the first place. And is for us. It doesn't have any other ulterior motives. And so, man, that's freaking beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that story, bro. That's really inspiring about your dad. I'm feeling, in listening to that, I worked out with a buddy the other day, and he was one of my roommates from BYU, Idaho, and we've kept in touch, and we were working out. And I'm so inspired by this dude because he's been going through the tough coming home from your mission things. Like he's been going through just all the things about that young adult life. And I'm so inspired by him because lately he has just decided, he's like, no, like I'm going to tune in. I'm going to tune into God, man. I'm going to stop listening to so much music and stop listening to podcasts. Not saying people should stop listening to this podcast. You got to tune into this one. But he was like, I'm going to drown out the world and I'm going to tune into God. And he's been making these changes in his life because he's been stepping into his purpose. And his purpose has been enforcing his order, which has been helping just everything. And something I felt inspired to share with him. And if it's okay, I'll just share another one. Please. I don't mean to be a nerdy seminary teacher. Just
dude, I freaking love it. We need more seminary teachers sharing this stuff.
But it's just I just want to share this to emphasize the purpose that God has for all of our return missionaries here, and is for everybody. So it's from 1 Nephi 21. Nephi is like teaching these cool verses from Isaiah, and we get these cool verses where. 1 Nephi 21, verse 15. And Isaiah is teaching about how God's not going to forget us. He says, like in verse 15, I'll just paraphrase. He's like, will a woman forget her baby? And it's like, obviously it's like, no, but he's like, a woman will forget her baby before I forget you. And then he's like, behold, I have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. And so that's like so powerful. Like we get that belonging, like, oh, like Jesus, like put us on his hands. And I think on the mission, we feel that, we experience that for ourselves. We have that come unto Jesus, the come to Jesus moments and everything. And that's so good and so powerful. And yes, please remember, like we have belonging in Jesus. That's number one. But in a few verses, in verse 22, it says, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will lift up mine hand And if you remember, what's on his hand is us, right?
Yeah.
And he lifts up his hand. And who does he lift it up to? I'll lift up my hand to the Gentiles, or those who don't know him yet, or those who have forgot him, and set up my standard to the people. And so this is Jesus saying, hey, listen, I don't care if you're pre-mission, during your mission, after your mission. He says, you're on my hands. And not only that, but I trust you. I have a work for you to do. I want to lift you up. I want to set a standard with you to those that don't know me yet.
Dang.
And those who know me, but they've forgotten me. And so I just share that to emphasize, like, I wanted to emphasize to my friend that God was working in his life in this way. And I just want to say, like, God's working in everyone's life, and he has a purpose for us. He wants to set us up for success, and he gives us purpose in order to find and experience that.
Dang, I never thought about those scriptures that way. He uses us as that standard once. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Same with, like, I'm the light of the world, and then you're the light of the world, right? Like, it's all over. We just gotta remember, man.
Yeah.
Like, there's something bigger than just coming home and having to get a job and going to school and trying to hopefully get married. Like, there's so much more than that, bro.
Yeah,
it's so much more.
Oh, man, I freaking love that. Honestly, this is a really good transition point, unless you have anything else to say about purpose.
No, it's okay. We can move.
But this is a great transition point to relationships. Because like we've been talking about, like, when we come home, we focus on other people. That is still our purpose. It's to be that standard to the nations. It's to help, serve, minister, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but we often need that ourselves. We need those standards and those relationships ourselves. For you, coming home from the mission, what role did relationships play?
So it was really special coming home because when I was in high school, I had a terrible relationship with my parents and with my siblings because I was the oldest and I was a punk, you know, like I was taking everything for granted and I was being a punk, just trying to be cool, trying to be happy myself. And so when I came home from my mission, so kind of on my mission, I was able to apologize. And this one night I was just up late. My companion came out. He's like, yeah, you good, Elder? And I was just like bawling, just writing all these letters home to my mom and my siblings and my dad. And so was able to mend some of those relationships. And so when I came home, some of the best relationships that was so important for me and just fueled me was those family relationships.
Yeah.
Building those relationships, and it was so fun just getting so curious with my parents, just asking them like, wait, how did you guys meet? And like, how do you guys stay strong in the gospel? And like having these conversations that built up those relationships, and then hanging out with my siblings too. That was like such a crucial time before I went off to college.
Yeah.
And so in that phase, that was really powerful. And I think that's a great thing for return missionaries to pour into your family, you know, just cherish those and build up those relationships. And then it was college. And so then I had, you know, roommates played a big role, you know, roommates and then teachers and mentors and different things like that. And then we have our, you know, our mutual homie, Talon, and that
the man,
friends like Talon, like just God sent, just angels, bro.
Seriously.
And I do believe God sends angels in the forms of friends, and so those are a few. Sorry, I know this is kind of general, but
oh, dude, I
family relationships, and then friends, and then obviously dating, and then finding my my wife, and then our little baby boy. So
you have a little baby boy.
Yeah, he's about 7 months now.
That's awesome.
And so now it's all them. So I think there's kind of seasons and phases, but I'm a big believer, bro, that when you come home, those three things. So first, order, purpose, but then relationships, pouring into those relationships, because there's times when in young adult life and I try to say this too, because there's so many, I hate when people I don't hate, but I just don't think it's super healthy when we're in extremes about the phases of life. Like sometimes as a young adult saying like, oh, you'll finally find happiness when you're married. Or the flip side of that, like, oh yeah, like live it up while you can, because when you're married, it's over.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I hate that.
It's so dumb.
I hate
because
that.
there's beautiful, amazing experiences to be had when you're single, and there's different things that you have access to and you don't have access to as you're progressing through different relationships.
Yeah.
But yeah, That was kind of like a ramble. But
dude, I freaking love that.
Pouring into relationships, bro. It's big time.
Was there a specific relationship? I kind of want to ask about Talon, but if there's one that sticks out more to you, I want to talk to you about that. But earlier you're like, man, Talon was a godsend, like kind of the older brother in my life that I needed at the time.
Yeah.
What was the story behind that?
So me and Talon didn't know each other super good, but we taught together. And I'm actually having a hard time remembering which came after what, but there's two big things that happened. And this goes to show that when you're living in purpose and following the Spirit, that God will use you in your relationships after your mission. So there's this time when I was going through a breakup, and it was a really tough breakup, dude, man. Like,
they're the worst.
It was tough, and it was kind of messy, and there was and a lot of it was my fault too. And I knew I needed to. We both knew this. Well, I don't need to talk about all that, but the breakup needed to happen, and it was messy and it was tough. And so I'm driving to the temple because I want to sit in the temple parking lot. Yeah. And then it was on the phone because it was a long distance thing. And Talon texts me that day, bro, and he's like, "Dude, do you want to go get some IHOP sometime soon?" And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, no. And then my body's like, yeah, you know. But so I'm like going
I'm sad, but I'm hungry.
My soul needs it. Yeah. And so I go and have the conversation, and the breakup is just sad. We're crying, like it just sucks, you know. And fast forward to going to IHOP with Talon. I show up, you know, I get my steak and eggs, you know, and he gets his stuff, and he could tell that something's off with me. And so it just comes up of the situation that I'm in. And, you know, I'm sharing about how sometimes there's breakups where you feel like it's right, you know it's right, but you still like want to go back, and you have regrets, and you have, you know, kind of a negative mindset about it. And Talon tells me, and this is like no lie, he had gone through the same exact thing, different girl, you know, but same exact thing exactly a year before, like to the month, like in the same month. He had gone through that, but his was a little different because when he had some of those regrets and some of those things, they actually had gotten back together. Yeah. And then broke up again, and then back together.
I was roommates with him at this point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when he was going through this. Yeah.
That's cool. And so he was able to sit there and tell me and look me in the eye and say, dude, you don't want to do like what I did. And he's like, I feel for you. And he actually busted out some scriptures on me about just teaching the principle of being able to move on it and trusting God that he has a better path for you and the other person. And so that was obviously like a big relationship building thing with me and Talon. Yeah. But I think back and I know that it was powerful that way. One, because God knew me and knew both of us. And also Talon was in tune to reach out because we weren't even good friends yet. Yeah. But because I really believe God orchestrated it, and Talon was able to be a huge blessing to me. And then that built a really cool friendship, which then led to us taking that little trip down with Emily Freeman to grab her daughter Grace, where we came up with the whole idea for This Is Kingdom, which is such a huge part of all of our post-mission purpose now. Yeah. And so anyway, that was a lot, but just relationships and God moving things together, bro.
Dude, he reached out at the perfect time. He did the same thing for me, man. I was moving. I was like, I just need to move. I need a change in my life because I was in recovery and I wanted to just change my environment.
Yeah, I love that.
And I can't remember. I think it was Hunter Newbold, actually. I just said, hey, I'm looking for a place to live. Hunter's like, live with me and Talon. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe. And I think I jumped on the phone with Talon and he just totally convinced me. He's like, dude, it'll be fun. We're totally gonna be roommates. We're gonna be living here. And I was like, okay, fine. And so when I joined the crew, it was just kind of the same thing. I think that's the theme in his life. He's been able to be there for a lot of people, which is just so cool. And I want to be the same way and be that kind of guy that acts on those promptings.
Yeah.
That can be the guy that people can turn to and lean on when they're going through a breakup. Man, those are tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just goes to show, man, and it's funny again how they're all weaved in together.
Yeah.
Because Talon is someone who has order in his life.
Oh, very
someone who's
orderly.
living in purpose.
Yeah.
And that set him up to really show up for a friend who needed him. And I think it's the same for all of us. If we can start pouring into these three things, pouring into order, purpose, that will set us up for relationships, and then being a good friend and finding connection and relationship with people who are striving to have order and purpose. It reinforces your ability to pour into those as well.
Yeah.
And then you're just growing together with people.
Man.
You know what I mean?
I love it.
Because that's a huge thing. Like, you really do have a choice when you get home, because in high school, you're kind of surrounded with people already.
Yeah.
And even on the mission, you're kind of surrounded by people already. You're assigned to your
stuck with a
companion. Yeah, you're stuck sometimes for way too long. No, I'm just playing.
Sometimes though.
Yeah. It's just funny to think about. Well, that's a whole nother thing about missions and companions.
Yeah.
But when you get home, you get to choose, who am I going to spend my time with, and what relationships am I going to build? Who am I going to be there for? And I think it is really important to be intentional about your friends when you come home, who you spend time with. And I used to be more extreme on this, and I've backed off because I actually had a friend open my eyes, because I used to be like, hey, if they're not the best friends for you, or if they're kind of toxic, like, just cut them off, like, don't spend your time there. And I had a friend who actually opened my eyes to some of the different purposes that I think God has for different friendships. I think it is good to have some one-sided relationships, helps us just give without expectation. I think it is good sometimes.
Like, what's it called? Service without attachment, where you just like give and don't expect anything.
Yeah.
You shoot them a nice text, don't expect them to text you back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to have friends where maybe they don't have the same standards and values, because then you get to learn about just loving people and not expecting of them to do anything. But I think it goes to show something when Jesus was spending time with everybody, loving on everybody, but he always had his core group of disciples. And I think in that, I don't know if Jesus needed to have strength in that, but I know the disciples found strength. And I think for return missionaries, it is very valuable to surround yourself with uplifting people who you can lean on, who you can strengthen, and who you can find strength and comfort in as well.
Amen. Dude, I couldn't say it better.
Yeah. Can I ask you, bro, what role has relationships played in your life? Maybe friendships or just whatever, like post-mission.
It's been huge for me. I'm an extrovert. I'm a shy extrovert. When I grew up,
that sounds kind of scary.
Very, very scared to talk to people, very self-conscious, like, how do people see me? But I'd always get energized around people. And so I'm like, I do love people. That's for sure. But when I was going through kind of like a dark stage in my life with bad decisions, addiction, turning away from God, I thought the gospel was great for everybody except for me. I had friends that never gave up on me. Like, friends that could have cut me off if they're like, oh man, I just need go-getters in my life, or people that are going to inspire me. And they saw the worst parts of me. They saw the worst parts of me, and they still loved me. And then my family saw the worst parts of me, and they still loved me. And it just baffled me. I was like, how? I don't get it. How can you still love me after I've been a freeloader in your business? I have, I've said I would get better. And I never have. I make the same mistakes over and over and all this stuff, but you still love me. And it blew my mind. And so I started to think, maybe they see something in me that I don't. I share this quote all the time, but it's one of my all-time favorite quotes. Abraham Lincoln once said, "I'm a success today because I had a friend who believed in me, and I didn't have the heart to let him down." And that's kind of what it was for me in the beginning. I was like, man, they seem to really believe in me. I might as well throw them a bone and try.
Mm.
And I started trying, and I saw some progress, and I'm like, whoa, that was cool. Maybe there is some merit to what they say. And like, all thanks to God and the people in my life, because my life is unrecognizable from what it was 4-ish years ago. And so I would say relationships have saved my life, in a very literal sense. And you don't want to let go of those. When I got home, I've actually never been suicidal. I want to make that clear. But I wanted to run away. I wanted to run away from home, from everybody that knew me, so I could just start over in a new place. Nobody knows me. I can have my own standards. Nobody's going to judge me. I don't have any eyes on me. Thank heavens I didn't, because I had those loving people in my life to help me. And I don't think I know I wouldn't be where I'm at today without them. I'm in a family business now. And
Yeah,
it's,
man.
it's awesome.
It's fun.
I freaking love it. And so don't take your relationships for granted. Like just don't do it. I don't know how to say any stronger than that, because you'll be surprised with how loving and, I don't know, accepting and encouraging they are to you when you open up to them.
That's beautiful, brother.
Thanks, man.
That's powerful, man. I love that.
Totally. Dude, I've loved having you on, man.
Same, man.
It's
fun to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I want to turn the time over to you for the last couple minutes, just to maybe say last thoughts that you'd like to say to these return missionaries that are coming home, might not have that order in their life, might not have a purpose or friends, and they might feel alone. What would you say to those missionaries?
Oh man, one thing I want to say is, how good is it to know that we have someone that we've gotten to know on our mission who is actually perfect at order. He has the order thing down. Like, how good is it to know that you're walking with someone that has a perfect purpose and knows everything that there is about purpose? And just how awesome is it to be walking with someone who's perfect at relationships, and he's the best relationship coach. And I hope that any of our missionaries here, return missionaries, I hope none of them forget, and I hope we never forget our Savior, Jesus Christ, man. He's the number one. And when things feel like they're falling apart and like they're chaotic, he's the one that can bring order to your life. And when you feel like you're lacking purpose and fulfillment, and you feel like you don't know what the heck is going on when you got home, he's the one that has the purpose for your life. And when you feel like when you're feeling lonely, or you feel like you don't have that friend group yet, or you feel like you're not that best friend yet, he knows what it takes for you to show up in the ways that you need to. And then with what you say with success, I can't wait for you to drop it here at the end. But, when we feel like we're achieving anything but success, he's the one that knows about success, and he'll help us experience that. I just hope and pray that everyone that's been listening will remember these 3 things, and then not to get overwhelmed. You know what I mean? We have covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
but I think the main takeaway is just decide to move towards order with Jesus. Mm-hmm. Decide to move towards purpose with Jesus. Decide to move towards building relationships with Jesus. And I believe that when you do that with him, everything's going to be okay, and things are going to work out and fall into place.
Dang. Yeah. Wow. I love that. That is the way to do it. That is a great way to take a small bite at a time at each one of those. Well, can you tell everybody about where people can find you if they want to hear your podcast or just follow along with your life?
Yeah. Thank you. No, just on This Is Kingdom, on everything, mainly Instagram. Got our community on there, and then just on my personal account, I've been trying to post more. It's just TJ Faamausili, and no one's gonna be able to spell that, but I'm sure you'll throw it somewhere. But if you just type TJ Faam, it'll pop up. So.
Dude, that's great.
Yeah, and I gotta say, man, y'all need to keep listening to this podcast, bro. Like, keep listening to Talmage and Released, man. This is a big blessing that you've been taking time out of your life to live in your purpose that God has given you to bless them and help them on their journey. And so, man, I hope we just all keep listening.
Dude, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for listening. It's such a blessing doing this. And if it has been of help to you, please leave a review, rate it. It helps a lot, more than you guys know. And just for me too, it helps the algorithm, of course, but it helps me know that people are listening and it's making a difference. But if you or anybody you know has a story, knows stuff about coming home from a mission, the hardships that come along with it, and also the success and wonderful blessings that can accompany it as well, please reach out. You can reach out at releasedthepodcast@gmail.com, or just Release the Podcast on Instagram, or Talmage Thane on Instagram. And just remember, God is good and is planning on your success. And though you've been released from your mission, you've not been released from your ministry. Thanks, bro. That was awesome.